Hi there everyone, you're watching 67 Hail Hail. Celtic have a new manager, hip hip hooray, Ange Postecoglou. I hope you're well, thanks for joining us. I hope life is good wherever you're skiving work from. I'm Hamish, John is here as well. John, we'll get into
Hello.
all the bits and bobs in a minute, but just original early feelings on the news.
Look, this is long overdue. I'm excited to have a manager in place. But Neil Lennon resigned in February. We're here on the 10th of June. And I'm excited for a new era at Celtic. I can't make any heavy predictions of how it's going to go, whether it's going to be successful or a disaster. I think anyone who's proclaiming either is probably at it a bit. But my gut feeling is that, get behind this guy and see what happens.
What did the Day 106 banner from the Green Brigade say? Things we will never know, John, because I assume that's been canned now. Celtic finally have a new manager. It's been an interesting morning, let's just say. If I seem a little bit flustered, it's because I am. There's a lot going on at the moment. These videos don't just happen. There is a lot of prep that goes into them, and I still feel as if I'm kind of running around with my hair on fire a little bit. What happened earlier today, I think in the last hour, was that, hooray, Celtic finally announced the expected appointment of Ange Postecoglou, which I have now mastered perfectly as the club's new manager. In the statement sent out by the club, we kind of got the usual stuff you would expect, didn't we? Ange is a sought-after candidate. Celtic listed his major honours, the fact he's won the J-League, the fact he's won the A-League a couple of times, the fact he won the Asian Cup, managed at a World Cup with Australia as well. So we got all that kind of stuff. We then got some, what I think are wee kind of interesting nuggets. I'll just read them out from the Celtic statement. It says, Ange has successfully achieved UEFA recognition and endorsement in relation to his pro licence issued by Football Australia. He begins working immediately and will be arriving in Glasgow as soon as current protocols allow. Ange will meet up with the squad at Lennoxtown and will then lead the team to the club's pre-season training camp, which is in Wales. And perhaps most interestingly, but not surprisingly really, he signed a 12-month rolling contract. I think every manager's been on that contract apart from Brendan Rodgers. Yeah,
that's standard at Celtic initially. I think even Brendan Rodgers at the beginning was on that and then kind of switched to a longer term one. That's standard for Celtic. It's the way the club protect themselves. It's the way we'll work with new managers, so anyone reading too much into that is wide of the mark. The club are saying, in Dominic Mackay's video interview, he said that the club will be moving heaven and earth to get him into the country as soon as possible. I'm not quite sure what that means, in the sense that I'm pretty sure he can travel anytime he wants. It's about what happens when he gets here in terms of quarantine that we might be waiting on. But yeah, it seems that he's going to Lennoxtown, and then we've got the pre-season camp in Wales on July 5th, I think that kicks off. So I'm sure he's already doing plenty of work behind the scenes. He's already said that he's been working with Mackay on recruitment and staffing and all that kind of stuff. So, things are moving in the right direction at Celtic at last.
Interesting that he's been working on that kind of stuff for what I think he said weeks. He mentioned Peter Lawwell as well, the fact that he's still been employed by Yokohama F Marinos in that time. I found that a little bit interesting. I mean,
That's
it's only been less than 2 weeks since the Eddie Howe stuff collapsed. So I'm intrigued by that side of things. In terms of Postecoglou, again, we got loads of quotes from him. Again, the vast majority were just the usual stuff you would expect. I've always
Celtic posters on his wall.
The Robbie Keane special, I like to call it. He's been supporting Celtic all his life. He then did hit out with a couple of interesting ones again, I thought. He says, we have already begun work on our plans for adding to the squad. We aim to bring players of quality to Celtic to enhance the existing core of great talent. Now, I'm not sure if great talent is how I would describe the existing core of the Celtic squad, but anyway, we'll move on. He says, I very much look forward to meeting with the players on their return from the close season break, and I can't wait to get started as Celtic manager. So he's in. He's started work already, we think, even if, not from Scotland. What have you've been on social media probably a little bit more than me in the last hour, because I've basically been getting showered. Well, first waking up, then getting showered, then doing about 40 minutes worth of research in 10 minutes. You've been able to go on social media. What's been the kind of general reaction from Celtic fans to this?
I think there's definitely trepidation. But it's trepidation laced with optimism, I would suggest, which is an odd situation to be in. I think most people recognise that the supporters initially need to get behind this guy and he's going to be judged on what he does at Celtic. I mean, I thought the hysteria yesterday to that cup result was a bit over the top from some sections of supporters. I understand the concerns and the kind of upset with how all this has played out, especially with regards to Eddie Howe and that protracted negotiations that fell through. But I think, he needs to be judged on what he does in this country and in this job. And until otherwise, we've got to back him and have hope that this is going to work out. I mean, the alternative is to be miserable and upset about it. And for me, there's perhaps a little bit of misguided anger at the moment. If you're going to be angry at anyone at the moment, it's Celtic and the Celtic board. It's not Postecoglou. And I think anyone angry at him right now already is kind of doing themselves a disservice. Because they're going to need to clue up on this guy and get to know him, because that's how this thing works. There's a kind of a good faith arrangement initially from both sides, and until he does something otherwise that makes me think that he'll be a bad Celtic manager, I've got hope that he's going to be a good Celtic manager.
This was a part of the live show where I was meant to put in the wee segment of my interview with Vince Regari from the Sydney Morning Herald last week, and he was going to talk about the snobbery that perhaps exists with regards to Australian and Asian football, and it was going to play lovely and you would all get to see it, and then I get to promote that video. Sadly, circumstances mean that isn't possible, so I'll just tell you that after you finish this video, if you want to kind of hear more or see more about Ange Postecoglou, to check that interview out. But he did touch on some very interesting things about the fact that, as much as looking at Postecoglou's resume is the thing that most people will do, that's what you're going to do. Managers are judged on what they win. He says that a lot of the good feeling around Postecoglou comes from watching his teams and just being involved with the guy. I was laughing in his interview with Jenny McCulloch from Celtic. The fifth word he said was mate. We are going to get a lot of mates.
Tommy Rogic as well, noticed that.
Tommy and Scotty McDonald. I think you add a Y on to anyone's first name. So it's going to be exciting. We've got all of that to look forward to. I just think this is a time for Celtic fans to kind of knuckle down and to get behind this guy. There's a lot of ill feeling at the club towards the board. I think you can separate the board and Postecoglou's team, and I think it's crucial that every single Celtic fan gets behind Postecoglou and his team and roars them on to victory hopefully next season, because we need to get this team going again and we need to win the league back. As I say, I understand there's a lot of ill feeling towards the board, but I think you can separate them. Yeah,
and I think, if you are upset with Celtic and you're angry with them, there are outlets available for you to express that anger and mobilise yourself and take action against the club if you feel like you need to do that. And that's fine, and we're not saying not do that. I know that Celtic Shared host online meetings, the Celtic Trust host online meetings. Eddie Pearson at the Celtic Rumours has been hosted live discussions on his Twitter account every Sunday recently. If you want to go and kind of, express your anger at the way the club's headed over the last 6 months, which is perfectly understandable, then that's what you should do. But I think in terms of Postecoglou, we need to get behind this guy. It's as simple as that. The alternative is that we make the situation worse as a support and a fan base, and I don't think that's what anyone wants at the moment.
I agree completely. This is a guy who's coming for his first real shot at European football. He will know a great deal about the club, I think. And I think we just need to really, to buy into it as much as he's going to, because I think we're in for a fun ride. Whether it goes great and we win the league this season, or whether, we have another stinker, I doubt it could be as bad as last season. That may be famous last words. I've been famous for making some bad predictions, but I do doubt that even if he was to go and try and sabotage the club as much as he wanted, he could make it as bad as last season. So there is that. Right, we'll get through a couple. Sorry, you come, John.
I mean, well, what do we know about him? The things that I feel like I know about him is that he plays attacking, entertaining football, or at least attempts to. And so this is probably going to be an exciting wild ride regardless of what happens. We also know that he doesn't suffer fools gladly on the training pitch or in the media. So we also know that about him. So those are two positive signs that I see immediately that might make a good impact at Celtic.
Which member of the Scottish mainstream media is he going to obliterate first? Any predictions, John?
No, but I think that might happen. I mean, if we get these fan media conferences on go, it might be one of us, Hamish.
It might be me. Oh, God, we've got that to look forward to. But I think we are certainly hoping at 67 Hail Hail that Celtic will continue the fan and media involvement, and we will get a chance to speak to Postecoglou and or Dominic Mackay as well. A couple of comments we've got in. I think they kind of sum up the differing moods, but the general appreciation for what Postecoglou could bring to Celtic. Barry Smith, I think he could surprise us all, I hope, but after hearing him talk, confident by the way he talks, could probably have chosen a slightly better worded one there if I'm honest, but thanks Barry. Magnet67, Ange and John will revolutionise the club, I hope. 100% backing from me. Let's get behind Ange and hope. Keep hope in our hearts. It's a gamble we can't really afford to gamble with, so much at stake this season, but good luck to him. So
I think that's it. That's the prevailing feeling that I'm seeing. I think it's the kind of, this might not turn out so well, but let's hope. I think what I'd say as well is that I think that anyone making solid predictions at the moment isn't being truthful, because I don't think you can make predictions at the moment, so I would be wary of that. I think if you have a hope and see attitude, then that's good enough for me at the moment.
I've been reading a little bit of Postecoglou's book. I think Changing the Game it's called. It's genuinely, I think, a must read for any Celtic fan, any Celtic fan in particular who wants to find out more about our new manager. It's like amazing. You just get to, it's ghostwritten, so it's not his exact words, but it's his thoughts. It's ghostwritten by a guy he knows really well and trusts, so you get a real insight into the guy. I'm about a quarter of the way into it, but the one thing that's hit me, well, two things actually. The first thing is this guy loves being written off. He absolutely loves proving people wrong, and I think he's been written off already by a lot of people. Some of them Celtic fans, I'd say more so non-Celtic fans, just because he's never really managed in Europe. He will, judging from his book, absolutely relish that. Secondly, and this may be obvious for a football manager, but he is absolutely obsessed by football in a country where football is probably, I don't know, 5th or 6th down in the pecking order. You've got Aussie rules, cricket, rugby union, swimming I think is huge in Australia, and this guy is a guy who always chose football. There's actually a kind of quite a nice reason for that. It was so he could get closer to his dad when he was younger, because obviously immigrants moving from Greece to Australia, he felt that football was the way he could communicate with his dad from a young age. So he's absolutely loved football all his days. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean he'll be a success at Celtic, but I did note in his interview with Jerry McCulloch that he spoke about the fact when he was asked the question, what are you looking forward to doing when you come to Scotland away from football? And he basically passed it on to his wife, and he said, you can ask my wife that. All I'm interested in will be the football. So it sounds like we've got a guy who will devote his life to making Celtic better. And without criticising past managers, or certainly past manager, I'm not quite sure I could say the same last season. So that's a plus point.
That's a plus point. And again, just from Celtic side of things, I mean, Dominic Mackay interview at the end of that video, talking about modernisation and talking about, utilising different areas of the club for the betterment of the club. I think, all that talk is quite cheap at the moment. I think what fans are looking for is action. I mean, we've talked enough, frankly, over the last few months about the future of the club. It's time to see what the club have got up their sleeves in terms of what they're actually willing to tangibly do and how they communicate that to the club. This is the first step of that, and it's about what's next, isn't it? It's about, is there going to be a sporting director? It was, interesting that he was announced as the football manager, not the head coach. Is there going to be someone above him in that sense overlooking the whole football department, or do they see him as a kind of perhaps a revolutionary figure in the dugout that he might oversee some of that as well? We don't know that yet. This is what we need to hear from the club. And the proof will be in the pudding again. Another positive for me that he was immediately talking up the club's academy, the club's young players, and it sounds like he will give young players a chance, and that's part of his football philosophy that you're mentioning from his book. So yeah, again, the things we know, he plays attacking football, he doesn't suffer full gladly, and he might be willing to give youth a chance. And for me, that's enough for me at the moment to kind of get on board initially and see what he's got.
You've raised a couple of questions there. My next question for you was, just to throw it out there, what are the big questions? For me, a major one is, how long have you been tracking this guy? It's one thing saying we've known about him for a couple of years, but how did that come about? Why did it come about? It seems a bit strange that you would be so aware of a manager who's been managing in Japan or Australia for the last few years. If you rate him so highly, why wasn't he your number one choice? The Eddie Howe elephant coming in the corner of the room. I think that's an interesting point. What is happening with the sporting director or the director of football? Have we abandoned that plan? I would certainly hope we haven't, but if not, who are we going to end up with in that position? I'm growing increasingly worried that we're going to end up with someone in that position who shouldn't be in that position. I'm growing increasingly worried that we're going to throw someone in there just to fill the position. That's a concern, and we don't actually get someone like Fergal Harkin, who was muted for so long. Who is signing players? We talk about Postecoglou wanting to bring in players, and work already started. Who's starting that work? Because Fergal Harkin isn't at Celtic. He's never been at Celtic. Nick Hammond has left recently. Are we working off an old list of players? Are existing scouts doing all of the work? Has someone been promoted there in the short term? Is Postecoglou in charge of recruitment? A guy who's, apart from a short spell in the Greek third division, has never managed in Europe. That would be a huge risk for me. These are all questions that need answered, and they need answered at that first press conference.
I totally agree. I don't think... if Celtic are hoping they can just announce this manager and go off for 2 weeks again and just, let us, speak about Scotland, and I think they're very misguided. I don't think fans are going to accept that. And rightly so. People are so concerned. This isn't all crept up on Celtic. They've had months to put their ducks in a row and all this. And if they haven't done that, then that's going to be a much bigger concern than appointing Postecoglou. He might just be a symptom of a wider problem at Celtic that still remains. And again, that's on Dominic Mackay, that's on the board. And yeah, I'd be very interested in it. Is the signing players point is very much a concern. Whenever you talk about a transfer story at Celtic, there's a wave of anger that comes in the wake of it, as in who's making these decisions and who's making these transfers. I think, over the years, transfers have been very much done by committee at Celtic, with the manager signing off on the ultimate signing. They have regular recruitment meetings, but yeah, again, that'll be based on a list of old players, most likely. That'll be based on old scouting. I think you're spot on with that. So Postecoglou needs to get right in amongst that from the very start, because the scale of the rebuild is unquestionably massive, the biggest I've ever seen at Celtic in my lifetime. You've got Ayer and Edward already basically out of the door. I don't think they'll be here for the first qualifier. So there's massive work to be done. This isn't the end of this saga. This is just the beginning of it. I think that's what people need to understand as well. Like, we've been talking about a new manager and the new direction of Celtic for months, since before Lennon left, even on this channel. But this isn't the end of that. We're not going to stop talking about that. This is just the start of that.
Yes, tempestuous. Thanks for the £5 donation. A number of people bringing up recruitment as well. Jim Thompson, recruitment is key. We need players. Rab McNair suggesting 3 possible signings. The first of them may be a wee joke. Robbie Keane, James McLean and James McCarthy are probably on the list. Charles Sweeney, very concerned. No director of football doing it on the cheap again. Sack the board. David Kelly reckoning there won't be a director of football. The statement from the club said manager. So I kind of missed you when you made that point. Do you think the fact that it says manager, just reading between the lines and, hypothesising, could mean that there won't be a director of football coming in? Could you genuinely see Celtic, after all of this public stuff about a director of football, just canning the idea?
Well, I don't know. Well, first of all, we've not heard anything directly from the club about a new structure. That has to be noted. They've not specifically said that, I don't think. I think all of that has come from either them briefing the press or from the press itself, or from fans like us, reading between the lines and all this speculation about a new director of football, it also has to be noted that Nick Hammond's job title was head of football operations, which you can read into whatever you want. I mean, are we just going to replace Nick Hammond? Is that's what's about to happen? I think the club need a root and branch rethink of the whole entire football department. I think that's what fans are craving. But it remains to be seen when they're doing that. I mean, it's June now. If they were going to do that for next season, would that not already have been done? That's my thinking.
Yeah, Dom Mackay spoke in the interview about modernising football structures and non-football structures. He also said we've secured a winner in Postecoglou. I just wonder if that first quote, that was regarding Postecoglou, so he'll help with modernising football structures and non-football structures. So I think that's, I don't know, I'm kind of reached a moment in this video where I've convinced myself that Celtic are just going to can this idea and we're going to have an all-encompassing manager, a bit like Brendan Rodgers was, which, with all due respect to Postecoglou, I would say is a bit more of a risk than it was with Brendan Rodgers, but time will tell.
I mean, there's a few comments coming through on the chat, and we addressed it at the start of the video, but in terms of the 12-month contract or the 1-year rolling contract, that is standard at Celtic. It happens with every single manager. It's not a reflection on Postecoglou. That literally happens with every Celtic manager when they're first appointed. So don't worry about that. That's just the way the club work.
It's just another easy one for rival fans to have a dig at the club without knowing the actual detail behind it. As you say, every manager apart from Brendan Rodgers has been on a 12-month rolling contract, and Brendan Rodgers started on a 12-month rolling contract. If Postecoglou's 20 points clear in April and still unbeaten into the Champions League quarter-finals, I'm sure
Is that a prediction, Hamish?
It's the first bit's a prediction, yeah, but I'm sure we'll get our big prediction video in a wee while. We'll just enjoy the Euros first. Rab McNair, how do you think Ange has enough time to sign a whole new team, gel them, and get them fit enough for competitive games starting?
No, I mean, that's it would be a dream if we got through that first qualifying game. In the Champions League that arrives on the 20th of July. For anyone who's not aware, the draw for that is made next week. I think it's made, I think it's the 16th of June the draw's made from Neon, Switzerland. So we'll know who we face. It's going to be a tough tie. It's not going to be a Lincoln Red Imps. It's going to be, Galatasaray, Rapid Vienna, or Midtjylland from Denmark.
You can work in that pronunciation of the Danish team.
Yeah, I'm still working on Ange Postecoglou, mate. But seriously, it's going to be a difficult match to begin with. I think I don't have, honestly, to be honest, I don't have too many expectations of these European qualifiers. I just want to be in Europe till Christmas, no matter what that means. And obviously, it'd be amazing if it was the Champions League. But I think anyone immediately getting on this guy's back because we go out of the Champions League, I think that's way too harsh, just given the state of the club, the recruitment of the club. Be angry at Celtic with that all you want. I will be, and we'll be calling that out. The way that the club have basically stood still for the last 8 months is baffling and worrying. But that's not Postecoglou's fault.
I take that point, and I think, no Celtic fan is expecting the club to qualify for the Champions League group stage. Well, I've not met one yet. Mm-hmm. And I know that, stating the obvious, the first qualifier comes first, and therefore that's the one we have the least time to prepare for. But that is the most important one by a million miles. I've said it before, I don't look at that as a Champions League qualifier. I look at that as a Europa League qualifier, because if we win that, we are guaranteed Europa League group stage football. I think if we lost that first one, I think there would be a bit of a fallout. I'm not saying people would be calling for Postecoglou to go or anything, obviously not in his first couple of games, but I think there would be a fair bit of fallout, and it certainly would be an awful start. I think if he gets through that first one and secures Europa League group stage football, and even if we go out in the next round to a Spartak Moscow, or even better than that, the last round to a Benfica or a Shakhtar Donetsk or a Monaco, a team would be expected to lose to, I think Celtic fans will kind of expect that. The first qualifier, I know it's daft to say when we've got about 4 players still at the club and we're seeded, but I just think we have to be doing everything. We have to win that first qualifier, because if we go out in that first qualifier we end up in the Europa League, but we won't be playing Rigas and Sarajevos like we did last year. We'll be playing better teams than that, and it will become a real battle to get even into the Europa League.
I mean, you say it's a must-win, but realistically, I mean, do you fancy this Celtic team going to Galatasaray and picking up a result that we need that could finish the job at Celtic Park? I mean, being realistic about it again.
6 weeks is a long time, though, isn't it?
I mean,
well, I know it's
again,
not a long time, but
again, for me, I don't think it's a Postecoglou issue. It's a Celtic planning issue, and we've been down this road before. Celtic don't plan for these qualifiers anywhere near as good as they should, even in a normal year. Even in a normal year, I mean, how many years has it been that we've seen Near Beaton in defence for one of these European qualifiers, and it's going to happen again? I mean, realistically, we knew that the Neil Lennon project was over 8 months ago, I would suggest. I think it was pretty obvious after the Ross County game that his time was up. The club should have been planning for this point from then. The fact that we're in this situation, we've just announced the manager on 10th of June. We've got the draw for the tie next week, and we've got the tie next month. Is a bit of a shambles. There's no getting around it. But again, for me, that's not a Postecoglou issue.
Yeah, I do agree. To be honest, I don't think you can expect a manager to come into 7 or 8 players and give them 4 weeks and hope to, beat Galatasaray or Midtjylland or even Rapid Vienna, 3 good sides. But I was just saying that I think it's just imperative that we win that. But the club's planning should have been much, much better than that. I know all the stuff that went on before, but we could have got Postecoglou 4 months ago if we really thought he was the guy from the start, and we'd have been in a much better position than we are now. He wouldn't have, or he'd be well through his quarantine.
There's quotes from Lawwell going about that, we've been tracking him for years and all this kind of nonsense. I think people need to look past that as well. It was obvious Eddie Howe was our first choice. We've got this guy and we just need to make the best of it now. I mean, I liked his first interview. I think he comes across as a nice guy and someone who, as he said earlier, will put every single fibre of his being into Celtic Football Club while he's the manager. And time will tell whether he has the ability to do it. But I've said multiple times, I think either way, whether this ends up a disaster or whether this ends up brilliant, it's going to be a crazy wild ride with loads of twists and turns and lots to discuss and lots to be excited about as a Celtic supporter. I honestly, as I've said again multiple occasions before, I'm sick of being angry at Celtic. I want to feel hope and I want to be hopeful of something. And I think this guy can at least inspire me enough a little bit to get behind him initially.
Yeah, if nothing else, I'm really intrigued by this appointment. He's rated highly by virtually everyone he's ever met in his life. I'm yet to see, anyone really have a bad word to say about him. And that's not just me, that's Vince, who I spoke to last week, said the exact same thing, that he's just loved over in Australia. I know he maybe didn't face the scrutiny in Australia and Asia as he will at Celtic, but time will tell. He strikes me as the kind of guy who can deal with that. We're in for a hell of a ride, guys. It's going to be fun. The Postecoglou Celtic regime began today in earnest. He may not be in Scotland yet. The Age of Ange. I like that a lot. We should maybe have gone with that for the title to this video. But anyway, we're just coming up to half an hour, so we'll leave it there, John. It's been a pleasure. We'll have far much more stuff coming out on the channel. I'll probably do a video later today as well, chatting about some sort of issue regarding the appointment. Of course, the Euro starts as well in a couple of days. We had a big preview go out with me, Ewan and Jackie McNamara yesterday. Check that out. Check out the video with Vince Regari from last week. It's all on our stream. Maybe you're a first time watcher of the channel. Maybe you're an Aussie who just happens to take an interest in Celtic now because we've got an Aussie manager. If that's the case, why not give us a wee sub? We're going to have videos coming out every day for the next God knows however long, how many trophies Postecoglou lifts. We'll be there for all of them. It's been a pleasure.
Another prediction, Hamish?
I'm going to end the stream now. I need to go, mate. Right.